So here's what you need to know right now. Sweden just committed $4 billion to defense, and now $1 of that $4 billion went to an American weapons company. Zero. And buried inside that story is a fact that almost nobody else is covering. Canada is already inside the supply chain that just beat American defense out of $4 billion. Already there. We're going to show you exactly how that happened.
And we're going to show you what it means for the biggest defense decision Canada still has ahead of it. Because Sweden just handed Ottawa a very clear answer. The question is whether Canada uses it.
So let's be precise about what Sweden actually did here. Last week, Sweden's Prime Minister and Defense Minister stood aboard a Swedish Navy corvette in Stockholm Harbor and announced the country's largest single defense investment since joining NATO. The centerpiece? 5 French-designed frigates from Naval Group, a deal worth up to $4.2 billion.
Sweden's defense minister said the decision came down to one thing: delivery speed. France could build warships faster than any other builder. And when you're facing an active threat environment with Russia operating to your east, that's the argument that closes a $4 billion deal. Delivery speed and proven capability. It's nothing more complicated than that.
And the relationship runs both ways, because France is not only selling warships to Sweden, France is buying surveillance aircraft from Sweden, Saab's Globaleye system. 2 allied countries choosing each other. The defense-industrial relationship between France and Sweden has deepened more in the last 6 months than in the previous 6 decades of their alliance.
And neither country asked Washington for permission before signing either contract. Not a consultation, not a heads up. They assessed what they needed, found the best supplier within the alliance, and signed. That's how you do procurement.
The financial markets confirmed exactly how significant this is. Saab's stock jumped 5.3% on the announcement, and Germany's Rheinmetall rose 8%.
Zoom out to the continent and the numbers become genuinely hard to ignore. European defense spending rose from 240 billion euros in 2022 to an estimated 360 billion euros in 2025, a 50% increase in 3 years. Poland is now already at 4.5% of GDP on defense. Finland and the Baltic states are all above 3%, and Germany is building towards Europe's strongest conventional military by the mid-2030s.
And get this, only 8% of Germany's 154 major planned military purchases now go to American suppliers. Just 8%. Europe's 6 largest defense companies grew their average revenue by 57% between 2021 and 2025. Rheinmetall's order backlog, the pipeline of work already under contract, has surged 323% over that same period.
Defense analysts are now projecting that European procurement from European suppliers will exceed 70% of total military spending by 2028, up from 55% today. Sweden's decision accelerates that trajectory precisely because Sweden has no historical bias against American equipment. A brand new NATO member, 18 months in, and their first major procurement choice went to France on delivery speed. And that tells you everything.
Now, here is where Canada enters this. This is why it's important for Canada. And it's not in the way most people are talking about it.
The Globaleye surveillance aircraft that France just committed to buying from Sweden, it runs on Bombardier airframe, a Canadian platform. Bombardier's Global 6500 is built in Montreal. When France and Sweden signed their bilateral defense agreement, Canadian industrial capacity was already at the center of it.
Yeah, and Canada didn't lobby for that seat. Canada didn't even announce it in a press conference. Bombardier built the best platform for the mission. Saab built the best surveillance system to go on it. And the result is that Canadian manufacturing is now embedded into NATO's defense supply chain, without Trump's permission, without any tariff negotiation, without any favors owed.
And this is exactly what the F-35 debate keeps missing. The argument is always framed as, is Canada making a pro-American choice or a political one? Well, Sweden just dismantled that framing. Sweden chose France because France was faster and ready. That is a procurement decision, and Canada is about to face the same choice on the largest procurement in its history. 72 aircraft are still in play, and Sweden just provided the clearest possible model for how to think about it.
You don't have to frame it as an ideological break, right? You frame it in the same way that Sweden's defense minister framed it. Delivery speed and proven capability. Easy as that.
So let's put the American side of this in clear terms, because $4 billion is the headline, but it's not the full cost.
No, because every major military platform generates revenue across its entire operational life. Frigates, fighter jets, surveillance aircraft, they operate for 30 to 40 years. Every maintenance cycle, every upgrade, every component that gets replaced, that is what the defense industry calls sustainment. And sustainment spending over the life of a program like this consistently exceeds the original purchase price.
So when Sweden chose French frigates over American alternatives, the United States did not simply lose a $4.2 billion contract, it lost 35 years of sustainment revenue. Every hour those ships operate at sea, the money flows to European industry now, not American.
And the pattern is continent-wide. Germany had 8% of purchases going to American suppliers. France and Sweden building bilateral supply chains without American involvement. Finland, Poland, and the Baltic states all spending at home or with European partners. The American defense industry built its entire post-war position on one assumption, that allied countries would default to American suppliers for major platforms. Well, that assumption is now broken.
And it didn't break because of an ideology shift. It broke because allied procurement offices ran the risk analysis on a single source supplier whose government has spent 18 months publicly questioning the value of the alliance. He's been imposing tariffs on allied economies and treating defense partnerships as transactions available for renegotiation at any time. Well, the risk column filled up and the procurement money moved. I don't think Trump counted on that when he said he wanted NATO countries to spend more money. He wanted NATO countries to spend more money in the USA. Well, you know what? Everybody chose to spend more money, but they are not spending it there, and they're spending it elsewhere because of him.
Yep. So, where does this leave Canada? Well, with more options than it had 18 months ago, right? And a much clearer picture of what exercising those options looks like in practice.
Canada has already signed defense cooperation agreements with 5 Nordic countries. The Arctic investment is already underway, and as we just laid out, Canadian manufacturing is already embedded with the European defense supply chain through Bombardier.
Yeah, the remaining F-35s are the actual decision here, because the first 16, they're locked in. But those 72 aircraft represent the largest single defense procurement in Canadian history. And what Sweden's defense minister said in Stockholm Harbor last week applies directly. Which option delivers the fastest? Which option builds the industrial capacity Canada controls long term? Hey, which option doesn't leave Ottawa dependent on a foreign government's goodwill to maintain its own air force?
It's obvious to me, and Sweden answered that question with $4 billion and a very public announcement. Canada, we haven't answered yet, but the framework is now on the table. Sweden proved that you can make a procurement decision that serves your national interest without a single anti-American speech. You just run the analysis and you act on it.
The defense supply chain that wins the next 3 decades is being assembled right now. Canada, because of Bombardier, because of the Nordic agreements, because of the investments already made, has a seat inside that supply chain that was not available 5 years ago.
So here's what we want you to weigh in on today. So Sweden committed $4 billion and chose France over American defense on one criterion: delivery speed. If Canada applies that same standard to the remaining F-35s, does Prime Minister Carney follow Sweden's lead and diversify?
Or does Washington pressure pull Ottawa back to Lockheed Martin? Let us know what you think in the comments, because this is a very, very big issue that's up for a lot of debate.
Check the pinned comment below, and if you watched yesterday's video and were looking for that link to the petition, it's in there too. We gotta get rid of Hoekstra.
And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to hype it, like it, and subscribe, because we're putting out videos like this every single day. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Ciao for now.